Okay, here we go.
Alright, good morning everyone. This is John Tab with the Mack Anthem Day Cab. This is going to be something different, and but I don't have to use a sleeper today, so we're going to be going to Iowa for the same main continent. So. So let's go for a ride.
Keep right, and then turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Keep left, and then turn left. Turn left. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Here we are, safe and sound. finding a new route.
This programming is sponsored by Rice University's Moody Center for the Arts, presenting Summer Jam, an afternoon of art activities featuring an indoor farmers market, live DJ, outdoor games, and more. Saturday, July 18th at 5 p.m. moody.rice.edu.
Actual diversity.
He points to the involvement of CPHE's founding chairman, Mark Becker, the highly regarded former president of Georgia State University. For its part, the older agency, SAC-COC, is already making changes as colleges and universities shop around for accreditors. Stephen Pruitt became its president last year.
I called for our standards to be revised immediately.
Pruitt says he's addressing concerns of some state leaders by reducing paperwork and pushes back on the idea that his agency is focused on liberal ideology.
We were, I think,
on.
the only accreditor that didn't have DEI standards. I think all the other ones did, but yet somehow we got pegged with that.
Another change, starting in September, SAC-COC will be renamed the Commission on Colleges and Universities. The new CPHE could accredit its first institutions this fall and get U.S. Department of Education recognition next year. Meanwhile, under proposed federal rules that could go into effect next summer, all U.S. institutional accreditors must have in place the means to address, quote, intellectual diversity on campuses. For NPR News, I'm Orlando Montoya in Atlanta.
Turn right.
This is NPR News.
On News 88.7, good morning, just about 8:50. Been over 5 hours or so. Harris County Sheriff's deputies have been investigating this apparent homicide, 99 at 529, possible road rage. Not sure. Witnesses said there was some gunfire in the area, and a 19-year-old was found dead in one of the vehicles. That's why that's been shut down all morning. So stay up on the main lanes. That'll get you around that. 92 for the high. Chance of some scattered showers. Rain the next several days as well. 83 degrees right now. 10 minutes away from Houston Matters. Kurt Cohen is here with a preview. Good morning.
Good morning, Jared. Give me just a moment to plug in my old headphones here so I can hear you properly. There you are.
Hey, what do you know?
How about that?
They love live radio.
Yeah, well, I was sitting here and listening to you and all set to go, and then I suddenly looked down and realized I had my headphones plugged into my laptop, and I'm not going to hear him through those.
That's okay. It's Friday.
Indeed. Coming up on Houston Matters this morning, lots to talk about. We're going to begin, as we have been talking about this week, with the ICE shooting of Lorenzo Salgado Araujo. According to multiple reports, Salgado Araujo was not an initial target of ICE, as we've been talking about. Our colleagues at Hello Houston spoke with Harris County TA Sean Tier on Thursday, who says his office is investigating Salgado Araujo's death, but admits lacking the sort of access that office has in nearly any other officer-involved shooting. And that's where we're going to begin, which is how past officer-involved shootings led many law enforcement agencies to train officers to de-escalate. That doesn't seem as evident from ICE and CBP, and we're going to talk about that with Dr. Everett Penn from the Texas Juvenile Crime Prevention Center. Also on today's show, percussionist Kahil El-Zabar. This week's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and a lot more. Coming up in 9 minutes. Stick around.
Come hell or high gas prices, consumers keep on consuming.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Schwab. At Schwab, investors get choices ranging from self-directed investing to full-service wealth management all in one place. Learn more at schwab.com.
From Marketplace, I'm Sabri Benishore in for Kimberly Adams. Reports are trickling in from various publicly traded companies about how they did in the second quarter, right when the Iran war was at its most disruptive. And this is happening just as the war has flared up a bit again. The latest reports are that attacks between the U.S. and Iran are paused for now, but talks are ongoing. Gus Fauché is here to talk about the economic outlook. He's chief economist at the PNC Financial Services Group. Hi, Gus.
Good morning.
Okay, so the global economy markets have had a few days to digest what is happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices are up, but not as up as they were. What is the view on where we are at and the economics of where we are at?
we have an economy that is expanding solidly in mid-2026.
Caution,
Consumer
mind
spending
speed.
continues to hold up. Business investment, particularly related to AI, is very strong, and so that's driving growth. Inflation is too high from the Fed's perspective, but is set to come down with lower energy prices over the past couple of months.
Our market's not concerned that we're going to get another round of inflation from the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz, or more supply chain disruptions, or
Caution, please mind speed.
Iran War 2.0.
They're appearing to shrug that off. We haven't seen much of a response to the current situation with Iran. Even when we had, oil prices above $100 a barrel, the Strait of Hormuz closed, the stock market still did fairly well. And so I think they don't appear to be too concerned about that at this point.
Consumers are the backbone of this economy, of our economic growth, and you guys over at PNC Financial Services Group have data on debit and credit card use. What are you seeing consumers doing in the face of, higher gas prices and worries and anxiety?
Consumer spending growth did pretty well in the second quarter, even when you take out the impact of higher gasoline prices and the one-time effects of the World Cup and the fact that Prime Day moved up from July to June this year. We continue to see consumers increase their spending. It's growing at a good pace, a little bit above the rate of inflation. And that's true whether we're talking about upper-income consumers or lower-income consumers. So households across the spectrum appear to be increasing their spending, which is good news for economic growth heading into the second half of the year.
Gus Fauché, Chief Economist, the PNC Financial Services Group. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, let's do the numbers. The Dow, the S&P 500, and the NASDAQ are all up about 0.1%. Dow up just 72 points. The yield on the 10-year Treasury is 4.5%. Delta reported Q2 earnings this morning, said it had absorbed the highest quarterly fuel costs ever in its history, but operating revenue was still up 14%. Delta's CEO said airfares would stay high for a while. Delta stock, though, is down 2%.
Marketplace Morning Report is supported by Fidelity. A dedicated advisor can help create a comprehensive wealth plan. Investment minimums apply. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC.
The Trump administration has announced that it will not renew a major trade deal between the U.S., Mexico, and Canada. This is the USMCA, the United States, Mexico, Canada agreement. It was negotiated during President Trump's first term to replace NAFTA. The agreement isn't disappearing. It'll stick around for the next decade, but everyone involved will need to negotiate new trade deals all over again. That carries very high risks for one industry in particular, autos, which represents about 18% of trade between the three countries. For more on that, we are joined by Patrick Anderson, CEO of Anderson Economic Group. Good morning.
Good morning to you.
The USMCA, according to the Trump administration, won't be renewed. It wants different new trade deals. What is the risk there to the U.S. auto industry?
The threat here to not renew the USMCA is a very significant one for the auto industry, and it's an existential one for the Canadian and Mexican auto industries, which have been integrated with the United States all the way back to the 1960s in an agreement called Auto Pact, which preceded NAFTA, which preceded the USMCA. So it is a very big deal for these all these suppliers, all these businesses, all the transport businesses in Canada and Mexico, as well as in the United States.
This kind of comes down to what cars or what parts of cars get what tariffs based on where they are from, determined by something called rules of origin. Can you explain what that is and what the Trump administration wants to change about it?
It's not uncommon for there to be a part that's built in Canada that goes across the Detroit River into somewhere in Michigan, gets put in a larger assembly, goes back across. So you have parts that go back and forth across the border 2 and 3 times and even more. And the question of, hey, where's that car built is never an easy answer when you're looking at a vehicle from an American automaker here. So the rules of origin are very technical items. You hardly ever see them in the newspaper, but they matter a lot for trade between the United States and Canada, and they're really important for the auto industry.
If automakers had to move more production back to the U.S., how difficult
wholesale separation of the industry, meaning basically you create a wall, or effectively a wall, because that would hurt both the United States and Canada and Mexico. There are a lot of auto production in the United States that depends on high quality, reasonable cost parts that are assembled in Canada and Mexico, and vice versa. So we in the United States have a lot to lose if we don't come to a negotiated agreement and renew something like the USMCA.
Patrick Anderson, CEO of Anderson Economic Group, thank you so much for coming on and speaking with us.
Good to talk with you today.
In New York, I'm Sabri Benishore with the Marketplace Morning Report. From APM, American Public Media.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from Baylor College of Medicine. With over 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
8:59 here at News 88.7. Good morning. 45 headed North Parker. Watch for an accident sitting in a left lane. Also 99, 529. That's been shut down. Sheriff's Department scene all morning long. Stay up on the main lanes. That'll get you around it. 40% chance of some scattered showers.
101,000 acres, making it the largest wildfire in the country.
This wildfire season has already burned roughly 500,000 acres across the U.S.
It started out 25 miles from us, and now we're 6 miles. Last night, people could see the halo of the fire on the backside of the mountain. You could see the orange glow.
Now, firefighters have a new tool to detect blazes early. It's AI, and sometimes it's faster than humans.
Fire starting in the middle of the night, no one called 911. We put it out, and we still never received one 911 call. So who knows how big that fire would have gotten.
The use of AI in wildfire spans the full wildfire management cycle. Prevention and mitigation and reducing the damage that wildfires cause and managing ecosystems, to suppression or putting out fires, to also recovery and help.
Or it can go to trial. The AP's Hannah Schoenbaum reports on what was said in court yesterday.
The roommate and romantic partner of the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk told investigators that defendant Tyler Robinson had said he wishes he hadn't done it. Prosecutors played parts of a video of their recorded interview with the roommate, Lance Twiggs, on the fourth day of a week-long preliminary hearing in the...
And we recall the time that Boris Yeltsin walked into a Clear Lake grocery store. We'll start with a news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. President Trump says he will not sign a bipartisan housing bill that cleared Congress last month. The measure is set to become law without a signature when the constitutional 10-day review period expires at midnight. Trump says he's withholding his signature to protest the Senate's failure to pass legislation that would require proof of U.S. citizenship to register to vote and a photo ID to cast ballots in federal elections. The latest escalation between the United States and Iran is adding to the financial pressure on American households. Mark Sandy is the chief economist at Moody's Analytics. He says the additional costs are starting to take a toll on families.
The cost for the typical American household is about $1,100. When you look at the typical American household spending patterns, that's roughly the amount we spend on all the fruits and vegetables we buy in a given year, or all the money we spend on public transportation. So it's consequential, it's adding up.
With the ceasefire still uncertain, the economic fallout could become a major issue in the midterm elections, now just 4 months away. Airstrikes between the U.S. and Iran this week have exposed the vulnerability of U.S. bases across the Middle East. Former U.S. Central Command Chief Joseph Votel tells NPR that Tehran's objective is becoming clearer.
I think that's a big takeaway out of just these last 72, 96 hours. That Iran is principally focused on permanent sovereign control of the Straits of Hormuz, and they are willing to accept the risk of large-scale conflict before they're willing to relinquish it.
Votel says that makes the Strait of Hormuz a central flashpoint in the conflict. Stocks on Wall Street opened higher this morning as retail gasoline prices continue to climb. NPR's Scott
places, the average price of regular gas and diesel fuel rose another 4 cents a gallon overnight. Fuel costs have been climbing this week as a result of fresh tensions in the Strait of Hormuz. Delta Airlines says its jet fuel bill for the most recent quarter was a record $4.4 billion. Delta is better off than some competing airlines since the company has its own refinery. Despite the headwind of high fuel prices, Delta reported better than expected profits for the quarter. The company points to strong demand for air travel, especially in the premium price seats. South Korea's giant computer chip company, SK Hynix, is offering shares on the NASDAQ for the first time today. The memory chip maker expects to raise more than $26 billion. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
On Wall Street, the Dow was up 56 points, the NASDAQ up 13. You're listening to NPR News from Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Sleep Number, offering 3 mattress collections with personalized features and the goal of providing people more choices based on their needs. Learn more at sleepnumber.com or a Sleep Number store.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Jack Williams. After the fatal shooting of an undocumented immigrant, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, by ICE agents earlier this week, his family and advocacy groups have made calls for an independent investigation. Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier says his office has not been invited to run an investigation. News 88.7's Kyle McClinigan reports.
Speaking on Houston Public Media's Hello Houston, Tier said his office would be conducting its own investigation, despite not being invited to do so by federal agencies.
My office is running an investigation, but we do not have the same level of access that we do in almost any other officer-involved shooting. My investigators have been on scene. We have talked to individuals.
DHS is conducting its own investigation into the shooting, and Tier says his office has not been granted access to the federal department's evidence. I'm Kyle McClinigan, News 88.7.
And you can see the entire Sean Tier interview on our Houston Public Media YouTube page. Houston Mayor John Whitmire says the city's police department cannot investigate the deadly shooting. HPD argues the matter is outside its jurisdiction because the agent was operating in the course and scope of their official duties. But legal experts disagree. Thomas Hogan is an assistant professor at the South Texas College of Law and says local authorities can investigate whether the federal agent used reasonable force.
The minute you exercise deadly force in an unreasonable fashion, you are no longer within the scope of your duties. You don't know until you investigate.
Meanwhile, the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office has determined that Araujo was killed with a gunshot wound to his torso and has ruled the death a homicide. You can read more at HoustonPublicMedia.org. And Metro is returning to its regular service beginning this Sunday. Some rail and bus services were altered to accommodate the larger crowds from the World Cup. Now that the games have ended in Houston, Metro says it is reverting to its normal schedule. Sports, the Astros in Arlington take on the Rangers in the first of a 3-game set tonight. Warm again today, the high of around 92. Then tonight, a chance of rain, the low 80. 83 right now. I'm Jack Williams, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on News 88.7 and on Houston Public Media's YouTube channel. Coming up this hour, percussionist Kahil El-Zabar. We recall the day Boris Yeltsin visited a Clear Lake grocery store, plus this week's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. First, though, multiple reports suggest Lorenzo Salgado Araujo was not an initial target of ICE. Salgado Araujo was shot and killed by an ICE agent Tuesday in Magnolia Park. His family says he was a home builder with no criminal record who was pursuing legal status. Spokesperson for Houston area Congresswoman Sylvia Garcia told Houston Public Media Thursday that, quote, another passenger had an administrative warrant and was the target. The Congresswoman then confirmed Salgado Araujo was not a target last night on MS Now. The New York Times cites information obtained from the Department of Homeland Security that none of the people in Salgado Araujo's vehicle were initial targets of the federal agents, but one may have resembled someone who was. On Hello Houston Thursday, Harris County District Attorney Sean Tier said his office is conducting its own investigation, despite not being invited to participate in the federal one. He also acknowledged his office, quote, does not have the same level of access that it does in almost any other officer-involved shooting. Other police-involved shootings and deaths over the years, including Houstonian George Floyd in Minneapolis, what happened to Sandra Bland in Baldwin County and beyond, led to calls for, among other things, improved police training built around the notion of de-escalation, that law enforcement enforcement should seek ways to help reduce the temperature in all interactions with the public. And while many law enforcement agencies, local, state, and federal, have incorporated or approved such training, it seems a lot less evident when it comes to ICE and Customs and Border Protection. While we still don't know exactly what went down Tuesday, what video we do have repeats a familiar pattern. Unidentified, masked ICE agents in unmarked vehicles attempting to run down and apprehend people in other vehicles who may not know what's happening. Not exactly the model for de-escalation. To discuss what's behind de-escalation techniques and how incidents like Tuesday's shooting might be avoided through them, we are joined now by Dr. Everett Penn, Director of the Texas Juvenile Crime Prevention Center at Prairie View A&M University. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Why is de-escalation something that seems appropriate for law enforcement across the board, except when it comes to the agencies tasked with enforcing immigration?
De-escalation has been around for a while, but it falls under the general topic of what we've learned with community policing, especially in the 2010 time period. Community policing comes together and certainly has been around for several years before. But during that time, we saw this important aspect of body cams coming together, the acknowledgement that there is implicit bias, as well as de-escalation training, all coming out of the horrible cases that we saw that 2010 time frame. It seems as though, indeed, that we have moved away from what we know as these researched community policing practices, and we've gone to an earlier time frame that had us to indeed have that research in the first place. So we've got to look at all the case, we've got to look at all of the information that's around us, but we have some of the principles that we know work in order to reduce that strain that often occurs between citizens and police. Falling back on what we know from the research helps us to move forward, to decline, and to have less of these horrible incidents to occur.
Is it fair to characterize action from ICE like carrying out raids masked and heavily armed, often not identified, as an example of escalation?
We know this. You talked about Sandra Bland. 2017, 2018, the Texas legislature very smartly came out with SB 30. SB 30, a bill that said that citizens need to know what happens during a traffic stop. And we even had the reinstitution and training of police officers. Every police officer, every person who is obtaining a driver's license had to go through this, or has to go through this training of what to do during a traffic stop. When you take that away, or when you're concerned that perhaps some police agencies follow this practice and others don't, you then have a citizen who doesn't know what to do and is concerned about their safety. Indeed, do we know, am I being robbed or some other terrible thing is happening? The general rule that we have, that at least we teach when we're teaching SB 30, the Community Safety Education Act, is that an unmarked car is not allowed to stop you and make a traffic arrest or a traffic sort of incident out of that. If you're taught that, and then you see this unmarked car doing actions that could be a robbery or something to hurt you, then that probably puts you on the defensive and certainly does not de-escalate the situation.
What is missing in how the federal illegal immigration crackdown is carried out that may lead to incidents like this? Big picture.
We are looking at transparency. What we know about police-citizen relationship. A, we want everyone to go home. We want safety to be number one for the citizen and for the police officer. Transparency helps us to do that. If I know what the practice is, if I know how a traffic stop should operate, I know the procedures, never giving away any secret tactics of the police. But if I have an idea of how it works, the SB 30 Community Safety Education Act, by law from the state of Texas, says that is what we should know. That allows for less incidents to occur. The question now, today in 2026, is what pieces are we playing with now? How is the procedure taking place, which makes for citizens to be concerned about their own personal safety because they do not know what should happen when these interactions occur.
You say, first of all, everybody wants everyone to go home safe. There are no doubt some folks listening, however, who have very hardline views about immigration policy, who say anyone who's in the country illegally is therefore a criminal and should be held to account. And some argue anyone who runs from ICE, even though, again, we don't really know if that happened in this case, but anyone who does gets what they deserve. You can find these comments easily online. Some believe it fervently. To them, what you're talking about, the very concept of de-escalation by law enforcement, is just some touchy-feely thing that's not practical or necessary. Fine for traffic tickets, not for this. What do you say to those folks?
Let's hope that that stays in the minority, that there are not people that holds that point of view as the view that is the majority. Let's just remember that what you wish or think upon someone else could happen to you and your family members who may be perceived as something that they're not. But there's also the human dignity that we as a country see that there are certain ways things should be done. And we want safety to be on the mind of every single person. So this idea of transparency and teaching everyone what should be done should allow for the interaction of police officers, law enforcement to do their job at the federal, state, or local level. But we want everyone to be safe in that process. Safety for all should be the primary concern in any interaction with citizens and police.
If you were given the opportunity to stand in front of a room of newly hired ICE agents, could train them about how to most effectively carry out their responsibilities without resorting to, or at least not beginning with, aggression and violence. What would you say?
Well, the law was passed by the federal government in 2022 that said that this de-escalation training is important and it should be throughout the United States at the local and the state and the federal level. Indeed, our own senator passed it there. So it's there. What the answer is already there. The de-escalation training exists with PERF, the Police Executive Research Forum. One can go on their website and see that they offer training. There's going to be training in Tyler, Texas in September. This training is available. It's research-based. That's already out there. We already know the answers. Let's apply them and implement them to keep everyone safe.
Dr. Everett Penn is the director of the Texas Juvenile Crime Prevention Center at Prairie View A&M University. Dr. Penn, thank you very much.
It's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Up next, from a lowered Atlantic hurricane season outlook to called block prediction market access for miners, we contemplate intrigues in the news on the good, the bad, and the ugly. As Houston Matters continues on News 88.7 and YouTube.
The Houston Public Media Foundation Board proudly stands with our community in supporting the Resiliency Fund. Their leadership and generosity are helping strengthen the future of trusted local journalism. Thank you to our foundation board for investing in Houston Public Media. Support comes from Specs, Texas family-owned since 1962, offering cool sips, snacks, and more to help beat the heat for a cooler summer. Details at specsonline.com. The fun starts here.
From Baylor College of Medicine, with 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, care, and pushed frontiers of modern science.
Support comes from Rice University's Moody Center for the Arts, presenting Summer Jam, an afternoon of art activities featuring an indoor farmers market, live DJ, outdoor games, and more. Saturday, July 18th at 5 p.m. moody.rice.edu.
Can happen in a week. Some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Vivian Ho, health economist at Rice University and Baylor College of Medicine, Joy Sewing, news columnist with the Houston Chronicle, and Mary Flood, legal consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing. Vivian, Joy, Mary, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
Good morning, Greg.
Panel, one of the nation's top hurricane forecasters lowered its Atlantic hurricane season outlook on Wednesday. Colorado State University's Department of Atmospheric Science now calls for 9 named storms, 4 hurricanes, and just one of them major this season, far below what we typically expect year to year. The department says a developing El Nino pattern and the wind shear that comes with it should limit storm formation and strength this summer, leading to, quote, well below normal activity. As the Cron's Michael Shapiro reported this week, the updated storm season forecast even lowers chances of a major hurricane hitting the Gulf Coast specifically. Of course, as we all know, it only takes one nasty storm, and it doesn't even need to be a tropical storm or hurricane, to cause cause world hurt, so we should stay ready as ever this summer. Still, the latest thinking is less storms and less severity. Is this good, bad, or ugly? If you know, start us off.
I think this isn't just good, it's great news, particularly when you think about those Houstonians who have been hit by hurricanes in the past. They're still waiting to get repairs, and they just never fully recover. So that's good. And in terms of the economic consequences, our home insurance rates have been going up dramatically, like everything else, and a part of that is due to hurricanes. So hopefully this means good news, although just from reading the Houston Chronicle, unfortunately, we don't have good information on amount of coverage and price of coverage compared to other states, but I guess the state legislature is working on that. Texas Department of Insurance is working on that. Hopefully we'll be able to sort of benefit from seasons when hurricanes are not as common.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly. Joyce Owen.
I don't know if it's good, bad, or ugly, or cautious, because, we know that even if it's a light hurricane, if our power goes out for a couple of days, then many of us are in deep waters. And it's not just about how the strength of the hurricane or the storm, it's all of the things that happen afterwards. And I don't know, sometimes I just don't trust some of that information, and I just want to always be prepared. So.
Okay. Good, bad, or ugly. Mary Flood.
It's good, but you got to be cautious. I want to take some comfort in this, but I've been through Alicia to Beryl, and it sounds like that's not much because it's A to B, but it was a lot. But I'm still going to buy the water and that I'll drink, and the peanut butter and crackers that I'll eat, and the canned soup that I'll throw out in 2 or 3 years. But I can't really believe, probably not until November 30th. And in the meantime, I'm going to pay very close attention to Eric Berger, our former colleague at the Houston Chronicle, who does such a good job, and to this guy in Florida I love. His name is Mike Boylan, and he runs Mike's weather page, and he does every day. He calls it the Daily Brew because there's some beer involved, but there is a lot of beer involved. But he's taught me so much about low pressure and all the different predictions and stuff. But again, I want to be cautious, but November 30th is when I'll say, oh yeah, it was a great year.
Can I just say one thing on the insurance? We talked about the insurance, and I think a lot of people don't pay attention to their policies, especially when they're renewing. And I went back and looked at my policy, and they hadn't updated that I had put on a new roof in 2024, which was very significant. And I sent all the information and everything, and they still had not updated. And so now I'm appealing to get a refund.
It should go down. Yeah, I don't think it'll generally go down. That's not the way insurance works.
Panel. Prediction market platforms like Kalshi and Polymarket are all the rage these days. They allow folks to bet on the outcomes of all sorts of things. Well, the Texas Medical Association is concerned they could be causing more young adults to develop gambling addictions, and the organization wants state lawmakers next session to establish restrictions on such platforms for anyone under 21. As KERA's health reporter Abigail Ruman reported this week, Texas is among 11 states where sports betting is illegal, but prediction markets currently are regulated like commodity futures trades as event contracts that can be tied to sports or the financial markets or politics or even the weather. Dr. Lindy McGee from Baylor College of Medicine says right now high school seniors are legally walking around with Vegas in their pockets and that they can bet on just about anything. She says there's bipartisan support in Austin for an age limit and a ban on any advertising aimed at kids. In a statement to KERA, Polymarket said any state legislative effort would, quote, run counter to existing regulation. Texas lawmakers next session might try to curb prediction market use among Texas minors. Is this good, bad, or ugly, John?
I think it's good, and I think it's, especially if they can do it, I think it's important because we already know what screens are doing to our children's brains, and addiction is real. Try putting down your own phone for a little time. So I think it's important that we have some type of restriction on, especially on gambling.
All right, good, bad, or ugly.
I think it's a good idea, but I think it's incredibly unlikely that the Texas legislature is going to do anything. The White House supports this. The White House has said they don't want state laws getting in the way. The White House has Donald Trump Jr. as a consultant to both of the major players platforms of this. So I just don't see actually anything happening, though I think that it's a great idea. Obviously, not only children need help. One of the major newspapers wrote a story about how a lot of adults, they've got that Vegas in their pocket, and because it's so easy just to hit a note, hit a button, that they're going into debt like they never had before because it's so easy. But also it's so susceptible to fraud. My favorite fraud that I know of is that George Santos, that incredibly amoral former congressman from New York. I mean, he put out a statement saying, "I'm going to the State of the Union." Then he bet against himself going to the State of the Union. Then he didn't go and won the bet. And it's just like, oh my gosh. And so the DOJ is allegedly looking at that. And the platform that was paying him as a consultant stopped paying him as a consultant to this same stuff. But the argument that this is finance and not gambling, I mean, Wall Street's gambling too. This is all gambling. But I just don't see anything happening in Texas. Our legislature bends over for the White House.
Right.
All right. Good, bad, ugly, Vivian.
Well, of course, I agree with Joy and Mary that this is good if the Texas legislature does take some action. Interestingly enough, there is not peer-reviewed evidence that Polymarket and Kalshi are leading to, say, addiction to gambling or larger debts. But that is only, I think, because it is so hard to get the data quickly. And I suspect the data is going to come out at some point. I mean, if for many of us who have raised a teen, we know how the behavior works. These kids are amazing. They can process and calculate and do analytic things very quickly. So in a way, you can say they're very smart. But then they can also make these wildly ridiculous choices because they don't seem to understand the long-term consequences of many of these financial decisions. And, they say the amygdala doesn't develop until you're fully developed until you're age 25. So I can see why the Texas Medical Association is saying this is important to not have the exposure to the gambling early on. And that makes a lot of sense. I'm hopeful that the legislature will act on this simply because, Texas, we have stricter alcohol laws still. There are things that sort of run in the deep beliefs of some of our legislatures, and I'm hopeful they'll act.
Vivian Ho is a health economist at Rice University and Baylor College of Medicine. Joy Sewing is a news columnist with the Houston Chronicle. Mary Flood is a legal consultant with Androvet Legal Media and Marketing. Vivian, Joy, Mary, thank you.
Thank you, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Trusted local resources don't happen by accident. It happens because listeners like you step up. Help Houston Public Media not only meet but exceed our Resiliency Fund goal. Give now at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
HPM Plus brings you the latest news and information from around the world and across the street. Trusted journalists delivering facts, fairness, and perspective. Keeping you connected by keeping you informed. PBS NewsHour, Frontline, and documentaries that provide a voice to the voiceless. Stream live, engage on demand, and enjoy past seasons through PBS Passport. Search HPM Plus on your smart and connected TVs and stay informed.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from listeners like you and from United Way of Greater Houston, proud sponsor of Hello Houston's Interviews with Ernie Manous on News 88.7, Monday 11 a.m. to 1 p.m.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Tonight, percussionist Kahil El-Zabar brings his decades-long musical partnership with saxophonist David Murray here to Houston to close out their We Be Free tour at the Houston Museum of African American Culture. El-Zabar is a 4-time Jazz Journalists Association Percussionist of the Year, a Grammy nominee, and one of only 4 African Americans honored by the French government as a Knight of Order of Arts and Letters, recognized for his global impact on jazz. He tells Houston Matters producer Mincho Jacob he's come a long way from where and when he started.
I graduated from high school in 1969. The Desegregation Act wasn't even enacted until 67, and it was then actually put into action in 68. So that was just this a year before I came out of high school, which meant I lived and experienced separate but equal, and couldn't go on the front of a bus legally, couldn't use a water fountain, couldn't go into a bathroom, couldn't go into a hotel or restaurant. That was excluded to my community. I lived that. And so I told my children, you're not going through that. What we're going through is extremely difficult. But knowing in history what people have suffered and conquered in spite of the atrocities, it gives us a vehicle of optimism, not with naivety, but hopefully with a clarity to invention, instinct, and innovation of looking at humanity through a lens counter to the rhetoric and supreme ignorance of, nationalist, supremacist views. I have to see positive because I can't win with pessimism. We have to see the art as conduit and openings to another path, if you will. The choices we make right now are essential.
Yeah, it's interesting that you have this career. You played with some of the biggest names. I mean, some of my favorites, from Nina Simone, definitely somebody whose music is life-changing. Was there a lot of idea back then when you were playing with them? Was that music is political, that art is political? Do you still see that in music, popular music out there today?
Well, in the words of Madame Simone, right? There are interviews where she says, I'm not political, I'm cultural.
Oh, Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Where you gonna run to? All on that day, will I run to the rock? Please hide me and run to the rock.
And so, yes, there were expressions and I believe rituals and commitments and work ethics to counter the negative political controversies and consequences that were upon people, but to empower.
Circuit dream, my impulse, no place left to hide. Jump the frame, tear the wall, push past the edge line, sharper than the static flash, running on the high sign. Even when the nights are over, you're on my mind. Don't you know, ain't nobody better than you. Don't you know, this is my confession to you. Oh, don't you know, ain't nobody better than you. Don't you know, this is my confession to you. This is my
We don't know what was behind because there was no Supreme Court revelation there. They just decided not to hear it. Then you have to ask on what basis would they agree to hear the $83 million defamation lawsuit. So she may be a person that not only is held the most powerful person in the world accountable, but not have to worry about the cost of items in her hotel minibars. I mean, it'll be something where this person who's gone through, I think, real challenges in dealing with this has faced all sorts of threats, not only from the president, but privately. I think it's a really interesting moment of account.
I hesitate to ask this because at this point it makes me sound naive, Margaret Toliff, but
fraud if they don't like the results in certain states.
Analysis after analysis has shown non-citizen voting is extremely rare.
Yes.
Essentially, this is a red herring, essentially a non-issue in terms of tilting elections, and yet the president, his allies in Congress, including the Speaker of the House, continue to harp on it. We're going to take a deep dive into these latest moves to undermine elections by the Trump administration and what they mean for a free and fair process. That's on Monday on If You Can Keep It, our weekly series all about politics and democracy. Make sure you join us then. Meanwhile, more signs of determination to take control of the midterms. On Thursday, the president fired the last members of the Independent Federal Election Commission. It assists election administration officials across the country. Megan Scully, this happens just months before the midterms. What are the consequences here? What could this lead to in elections? What's the president up to?
Absolutely. Well, I think as Margaret just said, it's all part of this building the case ahead of this midterm elections, which could be absolutely decisive in terms of who controls at least two of the levers of power in Washington. And building the case in order to challenge the election results. Trump is still harping about the 2020 election results without any evidence that that was anything other than a free and fair election. So this is just sort of adding to his arsenal as we move closer to the midterms.
Big thing, this Election Assistance Commission sets the standards for voting machine certifications. We've got chaos coming for anybody moving into voting machines nationally. And Trump has fired the remaining members of that commission. We're going to take a break. We have the news quiz when we come back, and we have this from Eric in Amesville, Ohio. Where is Mitch McConnell? It seems pretty shady that he can speak for 20 minutes to two different congressional members, yet not be bothered to release a statement to the public concerning his health. We're going to talk about it. Margaret Tolliver is here, Steve Clemens and Megan Scully. You're listening to The Roundup. I'm Todd Smolik. It's 1A. What Indiana, just up the road from Fort Wayne, who knew that Alan Greenspan played both the clarinet, that's a point, and saxophone. That's a bonus point for the reed section there. Good job, Dan from Avila. Your 1A swag is on the way. Here's this week's question. Get your ears open. A pioneering Chicago businessman also passed away peacefully this week at the age of 99. He made his fortune transforming the black beauty industry with fashion and cosmetics, releasing iconic brands like Afro Chic, Ultra Wave, and Classy Pearl. In 1971, the company that he founded with his wife became the first black-owned business listed on the New York Stock Exchange and was the sole sponsor of the legendary television program Soul Train, Don Cornelius. So, which trailblazing entrepreneur are we talking about? Send us your answers via the 1A Vox Pop app. Accepting answers through Sunday evening. No Google, no AI, no help. Use your brain if you know it. We'll be announcing your answers and a winner here on the show next week. All right, back to the roundup now. Megan Scully is here from Bloomberg, Steve Clemens from the National Interest, and Margaret Talla, senior contributor for Axios. Well, we had a question before the break. Where is Mitch McConnell? Part of the answer is that GOP Senator, seven-term GOP Senator Mitch McConnell, has been in the hospital for 3 weeks now. His family and congressional staff have been extremely tight-lipped about the reason for that. Emergency dispatch audio suggests that someone at McConnell's residence in Washington, D.C. may have suffered a cardiac arrest and been given CPR earlier this month. And this extended mysterious hospital stay is raising questions, to say the least, about Mitch McConnell's seat in the Senate and whether or not he'll be returning to it. He has announced he's retiring at the end of this term. Margaret Talla, what complications has McConnell's hospitalization created for Republicans now?
I mean, this is an incredible story, not to state the obvious, but in a best-case scenario, Senator McConnell's recovery is going quite slowly, and he's not ready to, make public statements. In a worst-case scenario, it's much worse than that.
He's 84.
But what is interesting from a political perspective is that it's not just Democrats raising questions, and of course, Kentucky's governor is a Democrat. Danny Beshear is like, what's going on? I need to know what's going on. But it's also sort of the MAGA wing of the Republican Party who have been increasingly critical of McConnell for being a bulwark against Trump, and sometimes who are saying, what's going on? You even had a Republican member this week saying, I don't know if Mitch McConnell's alive. Then you've got friends of McConnell, allies, and former staff of McConnell saying, this is ridiculous, enough of the conspiracy theories, he's okay. So we're all going to find out soon. But why does it matter? Part of the reason why it matters is because Republicans in Kentucky keep changing the law about what happens if there's an opening in a Senate seat. And part of the reason why is there's a Democratic governor. So they have taken away the Democratic governor's ability to appoint a replacement that had already happened. But then the law keeps changing again. And if I have this right, and someone check me if I don't, I think that the latest twist involves a date in early August. It's August the 3rd, because if McConnell's seat were to become vacant before that date, you would have a situation where where there could be a special election. But if it's after that date, it just sits vacant. And boy, the Senate is in a bare margin. What could that do to the presidency?
Mitch McConnell is an appropriator. He may be very elderly, but Mitch McConnell is powerful, Megan Scully. He's former majority leader. He sits right near, maybe he doesn't have the gavel, but let's face it, he's at the top of the Appropriations Committee. He's on defense appropriations. He is a say-so guy when it comes for things like 7 whatever it was, $1 billion supplemental for the war in Iran.
Yeah, there's one other element to this. If that seat were to become open before August 3rd, there is a ticked-off Kentucky Republican, Thomas Massey, who would like to run for that Senate seat, and I'm sure they would run another. That would split the Republicans. And
so either way, you can argue whether a vacancy is worse or a filling it is worse for the president.
And absolutely, on the defense
to get into the details of the Appropriations Committee, but without McConnell, that committee is tied, and that means gridlock, folks. I can tell you that. All right, let's leave the Senate aside, because I want to go to Houston, Texas, and more on ICE's continuing campaign immigration crackdown on behalf of the president, and another person fatally shot by ICE on the streets of America. Lorenzo Salgado Morojo is a Mexican immigrant in Houston, 3 U.S. citizen children, during a traffic stop on Tuesday, shot and killed by ICE agents. He's the latest high-profile person killed by ICE officers since the Trump administration's crackdown began. Here's his son, Ronaldo Salgado, at a press conference on Wednesday.
I saw a video posted on Facebook that he had been shot. I recognized him immediately. Not from his appearance, but from his voice, crying for help as he lay on the street, bleeding out.
Salgado said that his father had been in the United States for 35 years and was in the process of obtaining legal status. We don't have all of the details yet. ICE says Salgado Araujo, quote, refused to follow multiple verbal commands and weaponized his vehicle in an attempt to run over ICE law enforcement officers. The Department of Homeland Security is investigating the shooting. Margaret, what do we actually know about this incident so far?
Well, we do know, and it was the local congresswoman who's a Democrat who came out with this information on Thursday, that apparently this man was not actually the target. That is not who they were going after. It was a different person in a different car. And so if that information, as that information plays out, I think it's obviously extremely concerning, because it just shows that there's a real human cost to these operations, and that precision and less violence, are really important. This is a human life, and this is someone who was on the path to legal status and had been playing by the rules.
At least 26 people have been shot by federal immigration agents since the start of the immigration crackdown. That's according to The Trace. They're a nonprofit newsroom that follows guns in America. The government says that this man used his car as a weapon. Steve Clemens, that sounds familiar, because it's the same charge they leveled at Renee Good in Minneapolis, despite video evidence that everyone saw that she was attempting to run over an ICE agent before she was shot.
Well, this is the new template that people are pointing to and saying that, and we don't have a camera in this case, but I think people are saying, hey, this has given an opportunity to ICE officers to take more forceful action because of the so-called weaponization of a vehicle against them, the threat of their life. And I have to, tell you, just personally, having, watched what happened in Minneapolis, hearing this go on, and just hearing, and I think it's to be honest, I think what Secretary Mark McMullen at DHS is actually trying to deal with, which is the quick draw of guns on people who are unarmed. And that has been an issue that's out there. I think he's trying to deal with it. He said he's trying to deal with it, but the tone and norm of ICE enforcement is one that disregards life pretty quickly. Megan?
I think it's important to note that just several months ago there was a push within Washington to put additional constraints on ICE.
There was a government shutdown over it.
Absolutely, what resulted essentially was continued these safeguards essentially falling by the wayside, and that effort has since essentially dissipated.
Well, it was also, this is a good time to note a statistic in America from this past July 4th weekend. It's always one of the most violent weekends of the year. People are outside, explosions are going off, and the weather is warm. There were 139 shootings that left 35 people dead and 187 injured across the country on July 4th, on the 250th anniversary of this country. That number's actually slightly down from last year. Steve Clemens, that feels like a uniquely American data point.
Yeah, there's just a lot of guns, there's a lot of violence, and it is a part of when the world looks at us and says, what's the biggest difference between the United States and, say, a European country or Japan or Australia? It is our proclivity for violence, and it's just something that I think we continually internally struggle with. I should mention we have a constitutional amendment that protects the right to bear arms, but even Antonin Scalia, when he was alive on the court, did not believe that meant that you have just unrestrained arms of all kinds, and that is a challenge at this moment as we're celebrating our 250th.
Well, we leave that unique piece of Americana to the side for the moment. We talk about July 4th. I mean, one of the stars of July 4th celebrations, at least here in D.C., a lot of military flyovers, a lot of jets. They're impressive. They're very loud and intimidating. B-1 bombers, B-2 bombers, F-35 jets. Also, a gift from the government of Qatar for the President of the United States. He was clearly delighted when he unveiled that new plane, $400 million gifted to him by the Qatari government. It debuted after extensive upgrades cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars more to make it fit for presidential security. The Air Force said the plane was, quote, a secure modified executive platform. This week, when Trump left the NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey, he didn't fly on that shiny plane that he loves to show off. Here's what he said when he was asked why.
It's flying to Europe, to one of the big bases, 2 or 3 of the big bases, where we can show it to the people. And we'll be going home by normal methods. But we have it going to Europe, to a couple of bases, actually one in particular, but it's going to go to a couple of bases so the soldiers can see it, because it's truly magnificent.
Turns out that was not true. That was not the reason the plane was stopping in England. According to the New York Times, the Secret Service advised the White House not to use the new Air Force One, citing potential threat from Iran, given renewed hostilities in the Persian Gulf. Instead, the president flew out of Turkey on the older Air Force One. He switched to the new plane in England for the leg back to the States. New reporting, Margaret Tollett from the New York Times, saying that the new plane does not have counter-missile measures and security measures that it needed, confirming to the New York Times that indeed it does not have full security upgrades and it wasn't safe to fly.
Yeah, that's right. I think you've really done a good job of summing up the, where's the ball? Because the storyline has changed several times. One of the challenges in reporting around Air Force One is that while a lot of information is available about the Air Force One fleet, some of that information is, it's classified or highly protected because it involves security systems. But it has been reported again and again that the planes that we have thought of as Air Force One, they have systems that can scramble and block if there were to be an incoming missile, anti-aircraft missile coming. And so the question then became, was the Qatar gift tricked up with enough stuff? The president was trying to make it happen really fast. Let's get it out there. This reporting, the Times is very good reporting, suggests that to really add all those add-ons to make it as safe as the other Air Force One, it could cost anywhere from $400 million to $1 billion more dollars.
Some gift.
And by the way, it could take a couple of years to get it totally ready the way the other.
So why fly now? Is this because of the president's eagerness to show it off and fly in?
Show it off, put it in the parking lot, and then it goes to the museum at the end of it. So this plane is not going to be the plane.
You've flown on Air Force One many times.
This one.
No, not this one. The president said to a reporter, if I go down, you go down with me. Quite true.
By the way, that's true every time you're in a motorcade with the president or on a helicopter that's not as good as the president's helicopter.
Right.
That's the price you pay for flying in the most secure aircraft with Secret Service protection.
Frankly, it's true on any airplane.
But I think it's traveling with the president as someone who did it for many years is basically the safest way you can travel. You have the most protections available to anyone, but this plane was not protected as well as.
But it also shows something else. They worry about Iran. They are worried about what Iran might do next. There's a sense not only the protections there, we're engaged in an active kinetic conflict that the United States is worried about.
And the Secret Service doesn't care about headlines. They care about real threats, and it's indicated there.
Yeah.
All right, before we go, we do have to say goodbye this week to Team USA, who went out of the World Cup 4-1 to Belgium. Listen.
I was really happy because the energy was really high this match. Because in the previous matches, I think the energy was really low. It was not like a winning spirit, and this match was really good.
I think we have giving an answer on sport, so it's not nice that politics can between us, but okay. If they play like today, I think they can go further and beat Spain also.
Steve Clemens, the American team did not step up, but the Belgians really thought that Trump interfered in this whole thing.
Well, people all over Europe are doing the YMCA dance, thanking Donald Trump for giving the Belgians that extra oomph to
The Belgian team was doing it on the field and in the dressing room. Were they mocking the president?
I think they were saluting the president, saying.
That's Steve Clemens, editor-at-large for the National Interest. Across the table for me, Megan Scully has been here, Congress editor for Bloomberg News, and Margaret Talev, senior contributor for Axios, director of Syracuse University's Institute for Democracy, Journalism, and Citizenship, and host of the brand new podcast, 250 American Firsts. Make sure you subscribe, make sure you like it, make sure you listen. Mike Kidd is our sound designer and engineer. Thomas Liu produces our podcast. Chris Castano is our digital editor, and Alexandra Boti is our senior supervising producer. This program comes to you from WAMU, part of American University in Washington. It's distributed by NPR. I'm Todd Zwillick. Have a great weekend. This is 1A.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Ooma, now offering MyPhone, a modern home phone service for families who want a screen-free experience with parental controls like Trusted Circle and Quiet Hours. More at myphone.com. And from the Cy Simmons Foundation, since 1985, supporting advances in science, education, and the arts towards a fair, more just, and civil society. More information is available at cysimsfoundation.org.
The Trump administration continues its campaign to undermine elections, this time by threatening top state election officials with criminal prosecution for alleged non-citizen voting. What does it mean for the midterms? That's on the next installment of our politics series, If You Can Keep It, on 1A. WAMU and NPR in Washington, this is 1A. Hi, I'm Todd Zwillick. Today on 1A, the U.S. and Iran are back strikes in the Persian Gulf. In Ankara, at NATO, the president takes aim at European allies, re-ups his designs on Greenland, and declares that MOU with Iran over. We'll get to the latest. Plus, after trashing the Europeans, Trump leaves NATO saying nice things about them. The president of Ukraine was there as a guest, but he wants to come back as a member. And in the UK, why one far-right leader is rerunning for office and why a guy with a trash can on his head could have a chance to win. Right after these headlines.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lisa Johnston. President Trump says he will not sign bipartisan legislation designed to lower housing costs. NPR's Franco Ordonez reports Trump is withholding his signature to protest the Senate's failure to pass his sweeping elections bill.
President Trump has pushed Republican leaders to press harder to pass his election overhaul, the Save America Act. But the controversial bill doesn't have the votes to pass. president made his announcement on the housing bill online and expressed his frustration in an angry post, calling Republicans dumb for allowing what he described as a horrible calamity to happen to the party. The move is likely to increase friction between Trump and Republican lawmakers who have been clamoring for any legislative accomplishment to be able to take back to voters ahead of the midterms. But the bill is still likely to become law automatically the weekend, unless Trump vetoes it. Franco Ordonez, NPR News, the White House.
The Trump administration has removed the remaining leadership at the Election Assistance Commission. NPR's Ashley Lopez reports the decision comes just 4 months before the November midterms.
The White House says it has removed the last few commissioners of the Election Assistance Commission. This is an independent agency created in the wake of the 2000 presidential election, a close race plagued by administrative errors. The agency has since helped provide election officials with resources and has collected data about how elections went. The EAC was created to have 4 commissioners. At the beginning of this year, one Republican member abruptly resigned, and now another is also resigning. The agency's 2 Democratic members, however, were removed. Ashley Lopez, NPR News.
The final day of a week-long preliminary hearing in the case of Tyler Robinson is getting underway at this hour. Prosecutors have presented more evidence implicating him in the shooting death of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Sean Higgins with member station KUER reports from Salt Lake City.
In the hours after Kirk was shot on the campus of Utah Valley University on September 10th, Robinson exchanged messages with his roommate and romantic partner. The lengthy text exchange between Robinson and Lance Twiggs was read aloud in the courtroom by State Bureau of Investigation agent Brian Davis.
And then Lance replies, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" And Tyler says, "I am. I'm sorry."
In addition to the texts, an edited interview the prosecution conducted with Twiggs was also played. In the footage, he testified that Robinson expressed regret before turning himself in to law enforcement. Robinson has yet to enter a plea to the charges against him. For NPR News, I'm Sean Higgins in Salt Lake City.
Stocks are trading mixed on Wall Street at this hour. The Dow was up 66 points, the Nasdaq down 98. This is NPR News. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Ukraine has a window of opportunity to negotiate a fair peace deal as it gains momentum on the battlefield and strikes Russia's war infrastructure. NPR's Joanna Kikissis reports from Kyiv.
Zelensky spoke to reporters via voice memo as he was returning from the NATO summit in Ankara. Ukraine has become stronger both on the battlefield and in the air, he said, and everyone sees the corresponding results. He said Ukraine lacks interceptors to thwart Russian ballistic missiles.
President Trump gets hostile with NATO, and Ukraine gets a new boost in fending off Putin's missiles. All that, plus a Trump-like politician in the UK who's making moves while a watchdog investigates his finances. In the WAMU studio with me, Elizabeth Hagedorn, diplomatic correspondent for All Monitor. Hi again, Elizabeth.
Hi, Todd. Good to be here.
Great to have you joining us from Istanbul in Turkey, where he was covering the NATO summit in Ankara. Jack Detch is a defense reporter at Politico. Hi, Jack. Hi, Todd. Sounding great all the way from Turkey. And in London, David Rennie, geopolitics editor at The Economist, where he writes the Telegram column. Great to have you back, David.
Hello.
As always, we want to hear from you. We'd love for you to be a part of this conversation. Email your questions, your thoughts, and your comments about the week in international news, 1A at WAMU.org. Well, as I mentioned, the president is back from NATO in Ankara, Turkey. But let's start in the Persian Gulf. Today, the president says the United States is headed back into talks with Iran for the third or fourth time now. The president had some choice words for Iranian leadership while he was at the NATO summit and declared the memorandum of understanding between Washington and Tehran to be over.
I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. You know what scum is? They're scum. They're sick people. They're led by sick people. And they're vicious, violent people. And if they had a nuclear weapon, they'd use it. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. I'll speak to negotiators. They want to negotiate. They're good people. Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner. But they have to come back to me. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them.
So, of course, the United States and Iran reached a preliminary peace deal last month to reopen the Strait of Hormuz to shipping traffic, while they continued talks over major issues like nuclear enrichment and missiles and frozen Iranian assets. The United States launched strikes, Jack Detch, that hit several cities in Iran. Iran fired back at Gulf neighbors Bahrain, Kuwait, and Qatar. Also said that it hit U.S. military assets in the region. Again, the president says we're headed back into talks. There was a lull in the fighting in the last few hours. What's the latest?
Yeah, so it's a split between the two of them. I mean, we've seen the U.S. not carry out any fresh strikes overnight after 3 straight days of hitting Iranian targets, as you mentioned, and that was kind of a stair step from the United States. You saw the first night on Tuesday, the U.S. hitting boats, then begin to hit air defense systems and coastal defenses on Wednesday, and then by Thursday, Iranian officials said they were even hearing explosions near the Bushehr nuclear power plant complex. So a serious tit for tat between the United States and the Iranians this week. The Iranians also firing back. Now we're at a stage that sort of seems like a limbo, Todd. Negotiators are being dispatched. The Qataris are sending mediators to Tehran, which indicates that technical talks could be back on. That would help resolve the issues in the Strait of Hormuz, nuclear non-proliferation, and potentially sanctions issues. But, these are deep technical talks. And at the same time, you have bullets flying back and forth across the Persian Gulf. So not a good sign for where we're headed.
David Rennie, does the president have a better option than talks right now?
No, and I thought that clip was really what you just played of him in Ankara, where he was kind of trying to sort of set up a good cop, bad cop dynamic. Yeah, my negotiators will talk to you, but then they have to come back to me. It's like he's the tough guy, which gives him leeway.
decision, at least in this iteration, to restart hostilities? What are they trying to show in the Gulf, and what do they get out of it if we're headed back into talks, as the president says?
Well, Iran is certainly using pressure around the Strait of Hormuz to show that it can impose real costs on global shipping, which in theory gives it leverage in these negotiations. The negotiators didn't exactly secure an ironclad agreement in their rush to secure an exit from this war. And if you read parts of the MOU, much of which is quite vague, including the section on the Strait of Hormuz, you see that Iran commits to safe passage in the strait, toll-free for 60 days, but the ambiguous wording has let Iran argue that it can control traffic, that it can demand ships follow its routes, not those under U.S. Navy protection. And so I do think that it's likely that while the two sides may return to talks, we could continue to see these sort of skirmishes that stop short of full-blown war for the foreseeable future until the two sides fully resolve their core disputes, not just on Hormuz, but also on Lebanon.
David Rennie, you mentioned the tension inside Iran, elements in the Iranian power structure, such as it is, that don't want talks with the United States. And we got this question from Brett, who says, decentralized control of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard was attributed as part of Iran's resilience during the early parts of the war. Could this lead to the possibility of a commander controlling the Strait of Hormuz, conducting actions that are counter to the intent of the central command in Iran? Brett is asking if Iran is still centralized around a central axis of power, or if some powerful commander could take matters into his own hands in the Strait.
It's a really good question. I mean, one of the reasons that the Strait closed as quickly as it did is I was in Israel for some reporting recently. Their senior figures were saying that they were taken by surprise by how fast the Iranians closed the Strait, and that was precisely because actually surprisingly junior commanders were able to take initiative under that structure that they diffused power down in the event that there was going to be a decapitation of their top leadership. I think actually the stuff that diplomats are watching very closely right now is not necessarily kind of rogue commanders on the water in the Strait of Hormuz. It's things like, you know, very hardline figures in the administration in Tehran complaining about the very idea of talking to the Americans. You actually saw quite interesting kind of footage, you know, these enormous crowds that I'm sure we'll talk about in this kind of multi-day procession at the funeral coffins of the former Supreme Leader. You saw crowds chanting at some points against the very idea of people negotiating with the Americans. So there is a real concern that there are people who think that it's not just about the tolls that Elizabeth talked about, it's about sovereignty, that Iran shouldn't even discuss who gets to control who goes through the Strait.
Well, there were seas of mourners gathered to honor the late Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei. As David Rennie mentioned, the Ayatollah's flag-draped coffin and the coffins of several family members, also killed on February 28th at the start of the war, crept through the streets of Tehran. Hundreds of thousands of people looked on. Earlier in the week, we spoke to Negar Mortazavi. She's a journalist and host of the Iran podcast at the Center for International Policy, about the funeral and the mood of mourners there.
His family was killed alongside him, and they're all being buried, so there's a lot of symbolism as far as that they're being portrayed as victims, as martyrs who stood up to these big enemies, these two powerful armies who launched the war in Iran. And there's also defiance, a message of defiance, strength, resilience, continuity of the Islamic Republic, because we know one of the big goals of the war was regime change, and the regime did not change. I mean, the leaders changed because of assassinations, but nevertheless, they were able to put the house together and create some continuity. So there's multiple layers of messaging for multiple audiences.
So, Jack Detch, what about the message that the leadership in Tehran wants the West and the United States to get from that showing and that morning?
Well, they really tried to make this a referendum validating the leadership in Tehran, the idea that all those people coming out into the streets were just essentially giving a rubber stamp to the regime that's in place, to the Islamic regime. It does seem like there are some problems with that. There's some independent reporting indicating that perhaps some of the observers who came out, some of the mourners for the Supreme Leader were indeed paid in some way, shape, or form, or subsidized. So that would take away from this sort of spectacle. And of course, we didn't see some of the former presidents of Iran that are still living, Hassan Rouhani, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, not making appearances. So you still have
on with Volodymyr Zelensky and what he got out of the NATO summit. Elizabeth Hagedorn is here, Jack Detch, and David Rennie. Also coming up, a Danish reporter pulls no punches with the NATO Secretary General.
You sit next to Donald Trump in moments where he talks about conquering Greenland, talks about lashing out at allies like Spain, starting trade wars. Things that it doesn't seem like the old Mark would approve of. Does this have any effect on your self-respect when you sit next to him like that and say nothing?
Stick with us. It's 1A.
Right. And then turn right. Keep right. And then exit right. Exit right.
ready to roll.
Let's take it back to the old school. Let's take it back to the old school. Wave your hands like you just don't care. Let's take it back to the old school. Wave your hands like you just don't care. Let's take it back to the old school. Let's take it to Union Square. Let's take it back to the LQ. Wave your hands like you just don't care. Let's take it back to the old school.
Turn left and then turn right. Turn right. Get ready to turn right. Turn right. Caution, please mind the speed.
With you, Tito DJ.
Weapons. First it was the artillery, then it was the long-range ATACMS missiles. Now he's talking.
We are all checking off exactly what would happen if Trump got a second term. And I think you even mentioned explosive diarrhea specifically. I think that's a direct prediction of yours.
Right.
I think the difference was, I think you thought it was going to be just Democrats having to deal with, just the stress. But it turns out it's just regulations are actually important.
Right.
When you get rid of them,
And then
people get sick.
So this is what is cyclospora?
Someone
posted, if you're wondering how a well-known, easily detected foodborne parasitic infection is now spreading across the country with no recalls, no detection, thousands of people now affected, millions of people exposed, you can literally thank this administration's rollbacks of the FDA's food safety by DOJ, then headed by Musk, and the Department of Health headed by RFK Jr. Elections have consequences. Oh,
yeah,
God.
Maybe if you want good, healthy citizenry, don't hire a guy that looks like a microwave hot dog.
At the roundabout.
See, I always go with boiled catcher's mitt, but yeah. See, RFK Jr.
That's good. He's more reddish than brown
true.
these days, though. There is. I swear to God, he looks like if you slow him down and went frame by frame in an explosion effect, like in Scanners, or the lady from Total Recall. He looks like one of the mid frames.
Like right before
you know what I mean? Yeah. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I left that in the microwave too long. That's not going to...
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Like the end of an exploded hot dog.
Right?
Okay.
Don't put a fork on the plate. Oh, no. Right.
All right. So let's talk about this latest ICE, not just ICE tragedy in Houston. They're lying about it. Absolutely lying about it. The witnesses say, none of this is true. There's nobody, ICE agents in front of the car, behind the car. It's like Renee Good all over again. They're inside the car. They start shooting right away. And now someone else is dead. Representative Jai Paul. Instead of funding Americans' health care or housing or child care, Republicans poured over $210 billion into ICE and CBP. DHS officers killed 2 U.S. citizens in cold blood in Minnesota. Have we had a hearing on that? No, we haven't. They re-entertained countless U.S. citizens for exercising First Amendment rights and broke down doors without a warrant in violation of the Fourth Amendment. So, hell, we talked to Glenn Kirshner about this. Renee Good now it's Freddie. We had on tape. Right. And those people,
And then
those
you
murderers are
straight
still
up.
walking free. This latest thing, I guess there's not, you were just asking, there's no body cam footage, but we have
Go
witnesses
straight on.
who they're trying to deport, first of all. And by the way, this car they pulled over, and the person they're looking for wasn't even in it, so it was a mistaken stop in the first place, and here we go with the lying.
This is, we've been through this before with women's rights and the ability to have choice in whether or not they maintain a pregnancy and are forced to be brood mares for the state. Because this ship sailed years before. And one of the problems I have with
this is just one of these stories.
Yeah, and again, I will hammer this back and forth because I know there is so much to be hashed out in the legal aspects of it, in the on the street, the local to the federal, and all of these things when they pop up. But what I will say is that there will be more of these, and they will continue until people on our side of the aisle, or people who are allegedly on our side of the aisle in the voter booth, not just protesting, not just out in the streets, show up and vote consistently enough to make sure that people like Donald Trump can't put people like Noman and Homer or Mullen in charge of these kind of things because it's too important.
Yeah. Markwayne Mullin.
Sorry, it's gray area. Sorry, it's not. It's not cut and dry, black and white, and everybody can feel great about it.
Yeah.
It's a gray area. It takes a lot of consideration from smart people who actually care and do the daily work of it, not these bullet point and bumper sticker attitudes.
Markwayne Mullin, I don't mean to be rude. It's just, you're from
Go straight
Kentucky.
on.
I know he's not, but didn't it just look like the kind of guy that people go, someday ride with that boy? You know what I mean? Just something.
I'll tell you what. You know what he reeks of? He reeks of them fellers that got on that big F-150s all shiny and stuff with the heated seats and the satellite radio so they can listen to music from outside the area, and they only use it to drive to the mall from their gated community up on a hill. That's who that guy is.
He's Markwayne Ricky Bobby Mullin. Okay.
Yeah. That was a platinum problem too, ladies and gentlemen, as our friend Lawrence O'Donnell pointed out. That is this oyster farmer nonsense that he was selling as man of the people, like he was shucking oysters, which is a totally different job, by the way, and real work for anybody who does it. But his dad bought him the house
straight on
that he raised him on, and his mother's his only client.
So just talking about the ice lies, but how do we ever get back from? The president does nothing but lie. I mean, seriously, almost nothing he says is even remotely true. Nothing almost anyone in his administration says is true. Right? J.D. Vance on down. I just think it's a perfect example. Trump's administration walked back a headline grabbing U.S. beef export figure on Thursday after the Department of Agriculture acknowledged it had published erroneous data, revising the number down by roughly 90%. The USDA reported that the net U.S. beef export sales for the week have a nearly 500% jump from the previous week. And then they just said, that was reported in error. I mean, there's nothing that you can believe that.
I'll tell you what happened. You want to know what I think happened? And I'm dead serious. I think they have a set of figures they give Trump and the real set of figures that they have to pass on to the other people who do their job in the department or the bureau that they're operating in. And this across everything. And sometimes the BS they give Trump gets swapped or accidentally gets released to the people in the actual bureau or in the actual statisticians or whatever, and they have to report it. And they release it to the PR company. And you're like, no, this is just the BS document, so Trump will just go look at fixtures and leave us alone. Because if he thinks there's anything going on, he micromanages everything and he'll make it worse.
Yeah, it's true. They're like, there's probably the columns. You better get out there and do something.
Yeah.
He keeps repeating that everything's prices are lower.
Columns are going to be gold by the end of the year. I'm just telling you.
Oh, God. Sales of previously occupied U.S. homes slowed in June. A key measure of home prices climbed to an all-time high, adding to affordability challenge for prospective home buyers. Trump has said that no one gives about housing and that he wants to drive housing prices up to protect the investments of his wealthy donors. I mean, everything he said, it's just like everything's down, everything's low. I mean, nothing he says. We all know that out here in the housing market, right?
You and I have always been this, and I think your listeners, black listeners and viewers, whatever, this, dogs know it, but it's maggots that are starting to find it out, which is really where the poll numbers are scaring Republicans at this point. That's the key aspect of this, because, we were never going to be able to talk these people down from the Trump tree they were climbing, but they're starting to talk themselves down because billions of federal funds under the Infrastructure Act that Biden passed that Trump kind of slowed down, caused the collapse itself. It will implode like everything else. Eric Trump lost $600 million in crypto like in the last 4 months. And right when his dad's like, I've been drinking cocaine.
By the way, he and Don Jr.
We'll drive across that bridge and talk about it.
Yes. Trump's sons take off and land aboard Trump Force One in order to be the first into the renamed Donald J. Trump Airport, which our friend Noel Hassler will join us Monday on the show. Right. That's where he used to fly sex trafficked girls in and out of. Oh my God.
That's Steve's airport.
Passengers aboard the first plane to land at Donald J. Trump International Airport clapped twice. Once when it took off on the airport's old name, and again when it landed on the new one. Trump Force One, the president's private plane, departed Palm Beach International Airport, then blah, 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 becoming the first flight to land at the newly renamed airport. Eric, not Jr. I'm Eric. Did Eric get to look in the cockpit? Did he get to go?
Yeah, they did. The hard part is they have to stop rolling down the windows. He's trying to roll down the window. That's the emergency door.
I'm flying. Look at me.
The pilot puts his arm around and says, "Ever seen a road
Go straight on. Do you like
right.
gladiator movies, Eric?
Eric, last year, do we have to break or do
Yes, we have to break. 48 minutes after the hour, right back with one more segment with Hal Sparks, this portion of the show. Brought to you by my friends at Chapter, and I mean my friends.
Yeah? They got you out of the sticky wicket.
Yes. If you're elderly and bewildered, well, you know me, it's 20 years too soon for me, but I'm doing a practice run, so I know how to get on Medicare when it should happen. Okay, here's the thing. They are the only independent Medicare advisors, the only ones that compare every plan nationwide. They're honest. They got no dog. They got no dog in the show, man. No dog in the fight. They're not paid to steer you into certain plans, so they advocate for you, not insurance companies. It's a free service, whether you've been on Medicaid for years or you're just turning 65. There's a real person that looks at your doctors, your prescriptions, your budget, tells you the truth about the best plans for you. If you're already on the best one, they'll tell you flat out. If there's a better one out there, they'll help you switch. Folks who switched with Chapter last year saved an average of $100. Wow. Under 20 minutes, no pressure. Go to chapter.org/Miller. That's ASK. AskChapter.org/Miller. Or call them now, 681-329-3164. Okay, fine. It's Stephanie Miller, Stephanie Miller, Stephanie Miller, Stephanie Miller!
It's the Stephanie Miller Show.
Summer nights, I don't trap heat the way my old cotton sheets did, so I sleep more comfortably, wake up feeling a lot more rested. I also recently started using Cochlear's beach towels, and they're exactly what you'd expect from this company. They're oversized, incredibly soft, super absorbent. Just feel like luxury upgrade over the towels I always used. Whether you're headed to the beach or just lounging by the pool, they're fantastic. One thing I also appreciate is Cochlear stands behind everything they make. 10-year warranty, 100 nights of hassle-free returns on bedding. They really want you to love what you buy. Made from viscose from bamboo, breathable, soft, get ready. Cozier.com to code Stephanie for an exclusive 20% off. Cozier.com to code Stephanie.
Do you have a book? Get it out of your mind and make it a real book with a free guide to book publishing. Trying to publish a book yourself can be complicated. It takes a lot of time. Time that you could spend writing your book or even more books. Do what you do best. We can do the rest. Thousands of authors across the nation have trusted our book publishing service. We have the connections to help you get your book printed, distributed, and sold on Amazon, Apple Books, Barnes & Noble, and bookstores nationwide. We can do it faster than you can on your own. Get your free guide to publishing. It's a free phone call. Remember, make this free call right now and learn how to turn your book into something real that people can buy. Get your free writer's guide. Call right now. 800-213-9259. 800-213-9259. 800-213-9259. That's 800-213-9259. 213-9259.
Out Chicago.
The media has been manipulated with propaganda and fear, and this is what has brought us where we are today. More than ever, people are looking at just one news source, and that's
what they're doing, they're looking at their
phones. Well, that's their source.
They are looking
that's their
at
source.
Yeah, I know.
I'm
they
saying.
Are looking at their phone. They are hearing opinion. They're hearing misinformation. They are not looking at sources.
Check out Chicago every Sunday, 11 to 1 on WCPT 820.
Many of our U.S. veterans and service members face challenges: mental health struggles, housing obstacles, employment, food insecurity, and social isolation, to name just a few. I'm Bob Woodruff. My family and I started the Bob Woodruff Foundation in 2006 after I sustained a life-threatening injury while reporting from Iraq. Our service members had my back that day, and we need to have theirs now more than ever. At the Bob Woodruff Foundation, we raise awareness about the tough challenges veterans and military families face and invest in solutions to help support them in the next chapter of their lives. And with one solution comes the next. We solve a housing situation, we increase employment opportunities. We solve employment problems, we address food insecurity. We solve food insecurity, we impact physical and mental health issues. Foundation.org/success.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, music gets drowned out. Life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from It's in the Ad Council.
Because facts matter. Listen to WCPT 820.
Lost my voice. That's no good when you have a talky show. What happened? Z-Pack was in my medical emergency kit. Knocked it out like that, right? It's like having urgent care and a pharmacy right at home. It's not just a first aid kit. You got everything in there: amoxicillin, all kinds of stuff to treat a wide variety of common serious illnesses. No more waiting for the doctor, no more hours for urgent care, no more pharmacy lines, no more co-pays. I just hopped on with my one-good telemedicine doctor standing by, started my meds sooner, felt better faster, ordering goods online in minutes and shipped right to your door. You save $45 right now with my promo code Stephanie at urgentcarekit.com/Stephanie. Monday we have Group Pundit and comedian Noel Castler on the big show. Keep it right. It's housework here.
Where can we see you and worship you and do things with you?
ex-girlfriend Stephanie Grisham of breaching an anti-defamation. So she's Trump's spokesperson. She's a Republican. So she had published an opinion piece in which she described a man who had physically abused her while dating, was later identified as Miller. So the other one is he threw a pot of boiling water on his wife in front of their children. And, so I think how it's just unbelievable.
So you're saying that Trump's going to make him DNI?
Yeah. Yes.
Exactly. And he and Plattner are going to have to fight for it like the thugs that the Joker made fight the joint team. He's going to break a pool cue in half, throw it on the ground, and say tryouts start now. Again, and on the Republican side, it just isn't a negative. The only thing that Plattner gave Republicans was a temporary ability to fight him with hypocrite.
SexyLiberal.com for the One Sexy Liberal Show, October 24th. HalSparks.com for everything else we love you, Hal. Thank you, Hal.
My mom has taken up going to the park to practice yoga. My dad's going to a club, but not a book club, a salsa club.
Finding new hobbies comes with age.
My mom has started getting lost and not knowing where she's going.
Becoming lost or disoriented doesn't. Confusion with time or place may be a sign of Alzheimer's. Early diagnosis can help improve the quality of life for your loved one. Learn the warning signs of Alzheimer's at 10signs.org. Brought to you by the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The best words to hear at the TSA security checkpoint? You're good to go. So check before you check. Avoid delays at TSA security checkpoints by making sure you have an acceptable form of ID. That means a real ID, passport, or other acceptable forms of identification.
Visit tsa.gov/ID to check the full list of acceptable IDs. Avoid travel delays by checking ID requirements, and you're good to go.
Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get the parts and service you need fast from professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
President Trump is again saying Iran wants to talk about ending the war after days of strikes. Saga Radani is in the White House.
On social media, the president writes to Iran,
are Chicago's Progressive Talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT traffic.
From Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Michael Caro. We'll see partly sunny skies for this afternoon. Can't rule out a slight chance for an isolated shower or storm developing with high temperatures climbing to the lower 80s. And for tonight, mostly cloudy, dropping back to a low of 66. Saturday, sunny to partly cloudy with highs approaching the mid-80s. And for Sunday, lots of sunshine, working up to 87. And that's your latest Chicago weather update. Right now it's 79.
This is Chicago's Progressive Talk. 8:20 a.m. WCPT Willow Springs. And online at WCPT820.com, where facts matter.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Tired of overpriced blinds? Blindster makes custom blinds simple and affordable. We measure at home, install yourself, and save big. No retail store markups, just custom blinds guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com.
This is a WCPT moment in labor. In 2011, 6 Jimmy John's employees in Minneapolis were fired by their franchise-owning company, Miculin Enterprises, after fighting for paid sick days. This is a common theme in the union-free world of fast food. Over 13 million Americans work in the fast food industry, making an average of $13,500 a year, not even half the average cost of living. 80% of fast food workers have experienced work-related injuries, and only 13% were covered by their employer. A group of employees referred to as the Jimmy John's Six fought for these rights, creating an online campaign, posting a picture of 2 sandwiches saying one of these was made by a healthy employee, the other was made by a sick employee. Can you tell the difference? Too bad, as Jimmy John's workers do not get paid sick days. Help workers win sick days. More than 32 million Americans work a job that does not offer paid sick days. This has been a WCPT Moment in Labor. We're working for your rights.
Talking to your kids about the dangers of vaping can be hard. Getting them to listen to hot gossip is easy. So here's some drama you could share with your kid. Dude, did you hear about Cassie and Jake? No, but did you hear that vaping can cause irreversible lung damage and nicotine affects brain development? You don't need to gossip if you want to have an open conversation about vaping. So if you want to get tips on when and how to talk to your kids, visit talkaboutvaping.org. Brought to you by the American Lung Association and the Ad Council.
You're the only voice of reason on the radio.
You give me hope.
Having listened to you every day.
Thank you for your cool insight.
Always felt a little bit smarter.
I listen to you every single day.
I keep coming back to this station, and thank you for what you do.
WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Hey Google, WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's Progressive Talk from TuneIn.
This is the Tom Hartman Program.
Happy Friday, TGIF, Shabbat Shalom, Juma Mubarak, whatever it is for you. It's the beginning of the weekend here for us. And I hope you're having a fine day and you have a wonderful weekend. A lot to talk about today. Are we in a police state? How do you know? We'll get to that in a moment. Also, who referees an election when the referees get fired? We'll get into that in a moment. And a crazy alert, is sharing cupcakes the gateway to communism? Fox News thinks so. I'll tell you all about that. In the second hour of our program, Congressman Ro Khanna, Vice Chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, representing Silicon Valley area of California in the U.S. House, will be with us for the entire hour, taking your calls in a National Progressive Town Hall meeting. In our third hour, weekend at Mitch McConnell's. Also, why won't Trump sign the housing bill on his desk? He says he's protesting. We'll get into that. Also, they indicted an Olympian for touching water. Free Navy! So, a lot to talk about today. My op-ed over at HartmanReport.com, and I also put it over on DailyCodes.com just a moment ago. They said a police state. Are we already there and just don't know it? And, Tuesday morning in Houston, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, forgive me, my Spanish is, from third grade, literally, did what he'd done nearly every morning for 35 years. He got up at 5 a.m., kissed his wife goodbye, loaded his van, drove off to picked up his construction crew in Magnolia Park. This is, the heart of Houston's Mexican-American community. He'd raised 3 sons in that city. They became a teacher and 2 engineers. He had no criminal record. He was partway through the process of getting legal. They'd already taken his biometrics and fingerprint. And by 7 a.m., he was lying down on Canal Street with a bullet in his abdomen, crying desperately for help and in pain because he had been shot by a masked ICE agent. He died at the Pentob Hospital. ICE says he rammed their vehicle with his weaponized, but, there's apparently no visual evidence of that.
Turn left.
So, and even the president of Mexico is pissed off about this. Which brings us to the question that, people keep asking. They occasionally call in to hear and ask, and certainly bring it up a lot on social media, is, are we in a police state yet? And if so, how would we know? I lived in Germany for years, back 86, 87. I was working with Salem International, an international relief organization. I spent part of those 2 years in Herchheim, a little town that literally was on the East German border. I crossed through Checkpoint Charlie into East Berlin, saw that. My old buddy Armin Lehmann was the teenage Hitler youth who brought the news to Hitler that the war was lost, stood outside his bunker as he shot himself. My mentor and employer in Germany, Gottfried Mueller, was in the German intelligence service, in the Nazi intelligence service. He renounced Nazism. He got captured by the British in Iran and spent the whole war in prison, basically, and came out and devoted his life to peace work. And so, I knew people who were actual Nazis, Nazi youth and a Nazi intelligence officer and several others, actually. And I knew a lot of people who had just kind of kept their heads down. This was back in the 70s and 80s, and those people were still around. Most of them are dead now. But they all told me essentially the same story of how this all begins. How do you know you're in a police state? I mean, Germany didn't announce it just one day. It began with forbidden thought. Verbotener Gedanke. You may not think like this. A police, so let's just go through the inventory. What is a police state? Let's just go through the list. It's just straightforward stuff. A police state is a nation where the police answer to the leader rather than to the law, and where nobody outside the leader's circle is permitted to hold the police accountable. It's a nation where they can arrest, beat, torture, imprison, and even kill with both anonymity and impunity. Renee Good, Alex Preddy, now this recent murder in Texas, going after an Olympic canoeist for reaching into the reflecting pool. I mean, it goes from the most extreme to the most banal. Or banal, or however you say that word. And they're refusing, the feds are refusing to give the evidence of these murders over to the Hennepin County Attorney General, Mary Moriarty. Okay, number one. Number two, a police state imprisons its dissidents and makes the sentences spectacular so everyone gets the message. There was a local book club that held a protest on the 4th of July outside the Prairieland ICE Detention Center. Now, one of the guys brought a gun and shot at the ICE officers after they pointed a gun at him, apparently, from everything we can figure out. His name was Benjamin Saunders. That guy got 100 years in prison. It's a lot, but hey, he pulled out a gun and shot at a cop. But nobody else did. Marcella Ruda, who was a doula and who was acquitted by the jury of every violent count against her, acquitted, got 70 years in prison. 5 other people from the book club were also acquitted of any violence, and they got 50 years each. And Daniel Estrada, who was a Denton teacher and a poet, who literally wasn't there, got 30 years in prison for moving a box of anti-fascist magazines from one house to another. 30 years. Number 3, a police state criminalizes thought itself, as well as any expression of or action on that thought, no matter how otherwise legal it may be. Last September, Trump signed NSPM 7, National Security Presidential Memorandum 7, saying that indicators of domestic terrorism, that's a verbatim quote, include anti-Americanism, anti-capitalism, and anti-Christianity. And that anti-fascism is the organizing, rallying cry of domestic terrorists. The FBI has since retooled its 200 joint terrorism task forces to look toward the American left rather than foreign terrorism. And they have this new joint mission center that is looking into the funding of the anti-Trump protest movement. We see them going after the Southern Poverty Law Center. Number 3, a police state knocks on your door in reaction to your opinions, should you dare to express them out loud or in print. In January, a Rochester software professional named Daniel Strever sent a 3-paragraph email to Todd Lyons, who was then the director of ICE. It said, and I quote, "You are a monstrous human being and will be down in history as America's Reinhard Heydrich the Butcher. You will torment yourself until your last day on Earth." It contained no threats. There was no mention of violence. But 5 months later, 2 federal agents rang his doorbell while he was in Finland with his 7-year-old daughter and gave his wife a document headed, "Warning notice, you may be in violation of a federal law." And then they tracked him down in a New York City hotel where only his wife knew he was there and she hadn't told anybody. And tried to scare him also. He's now suing with the Foundation for Individual Rights of Expression, which could cause that group to end up, being under investigation like SPLC. The same week, federal agents confronted another person, a poll worker, for something that she had posted on Instagram. Number 4, a police state builds a security force loyal to the leader and his oligarch cronies rather than to the nation. Well, I mean, you've got this quick reaction force that Trump has built within the National Guard. You've got ICE. Putin built something like this. He called it Rosa Vardardia. Hitler built something like this. It was called the Schutzstaffel. We remember them as the SS. Number 5, a police state needs a compliant press. And you don't have to negotiate to nationalize the networks when you can simply arrange for a friendly, morbidly rich oligarch to buy them. CBS, CNN, etc. Number 6, a police state rewrites the past. As George Orwell wrote, "He who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past." Trump has signed this order, restoring truth and sanity to American history, and they're tearing down the history of racism and slavery in the United States and so on. And finally, a police state controls the vote. And just yesterday, Trump fired these members of the Federal Election Commission, or the Federal Election Assistance Commission. And the Federal Election Commission itself, which has prosecutorial power, has been paralyzed. So are we in a police state yet? I mean, I'll leave it to you to make that determination. I think we are in the early stages of one. Not the very early stages, the middle early stages. And I think that the one thing that we have right now that the people in Germany did not have in 1934 is an election coming up that might be able to stop this. So make sure that you're registered to vote and that everyone you know is. And let your elected officials know what you're thinking about these things.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
16 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with more of the news of the day and your calls in just a moment.
Frontotemporal degeneration, or FTD, is a complex brain disorder where each step forward in research brings us closer to answers. Because FTD is rare, researchers often face the challenge of finding enough participants for studies and clinical trials. That's where the FTD Disorders Registry comes in. The registry makes it easier for FTD families to help move science forward. Anyone can join to stay connected to the latest FTD research opportunities. For those who are eligible, the optional registry research study offers a way to share lived experience with FTD. This helps researchers better understand the community and whether there are enough potential participants for future studies. Your privacy is protected. Information is shared only in a de-identified way, and personal details are never shared. Every person who joins helps build a stronger, research-ready community. Because FTD is rare, every participant matters. Numbers have power, and together we can end FTD. Visit ftdregistry.org today.
Stephanie Miller.
I get to say my favorite sentence in the entire world. Here comes Kathy Griffin, hero of democracy. Hello.
How are we going to do this? Because I know we're both going to want to talk at the same time because it's a love fest. I am so in love with you. You are so important and wonderful and funny and brilliant, and you are who I aspire to be. When I grow up, I want to be you.
No, you.
Stephanie Miller, weekday mornings 8 to 11 on WCPT 820.
Check up on health with
Prince Witty. How can you avoid picking up the latest cold or flu bug? Here's a tip from Allison Jantz, the co-author of The Germ Freak's Guide to Outwitting Colds and Flu.
My number one rule, since 50 to 80% of all colds and flu are caused by hand contact, you need to know where the germ hotspots are and avoid those like the plague. There's a lot of myths out there. People fear public restrooms, the number one germ phobia in America. 50% of women will not even sit on a toilet seat. The problem is they should take those little paper toilet guards they're using for the toilet and put them over the bathroom faucet, because the faucet is actually germier than the toilet lid.
Allison recommends you use paper towels strategically to avoid touching faucet surfaces as you wash your hands and doorknobs as you exit. With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Webb.
That'll be $84.52.
Perfect. Grab the bags, honey. Mom, why do you always check your phone before we pay?
I'm just claiming my cash back on the Upside app. Since we're getting the groceries here and we filled up the car on the way, I've already earned enough this morning to pay for that pizza night we're having Friday.
Wait, so the app pays for pizza?
Not exactly, but the cash I earn on stuff we need helps us pay for the stuff we want. It's just a little win for our family every week.
Get more out of your everyday. Upside is the free app that gets you cash back on routine purchases like gas, groceries, and dining out at more than 100,000 locations nationwide. No points, no rebates, just cash back straight to your wallet. Download the free Upside app and use promo code ACT5 to get a $5 bonus on your first purchase. That's promo code ACT5 to get a $5 bonus. Remember, use promo code ACT5.
Offers vary by user and location of participating merchants. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions.
You know the national parks, but you may not know that they're supported by a strong foundation. A foundation for the future. We are the National Park Foundation. And together with your support, we are building a bold future where national parks are vibrant, protected, and welcoming. Today, tomorrow, forever. Learn more at nationalparks.org/foundation.
Hey Google, WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Find the Tom Hartman program wherever you go. In addition to radio stations across the nation and Free Speech TV on Dish Direct and the Internet, we're also live on YouTube across most social media and Tom.tv every single weekday with clips and links as well. Did you know your brain is roughly 73% water? That's why even mild dehydration can sometimes contribute to things like headaches, dizziness, brain fog, and irritability. Staying properly hydrated with water and electrolytes plays an important role in supporting memory, focus, and mental alertness. And as we age, hydration becomes even more essential for helping our bodies function at their best. That's where Native Hydrate comes in. Native Hydrate is a 100% natural, great tasting, by the way, thoughtfully designed formula that includes BCAAs and all 9 essential amino acids to support muscle recovery, strength, and overall wellness. It helps replenish key electrolytes to support your body's natural energy level, and it's free of artificial flavors, sugars, and dyes, with only 5 calories per serving. Every order comes with a 365-day money-back guarantee. Try it risk-free at nativehydrate.com/Tom. You're going to love this stuff, guys. Seriously, this is great stuff. Native Hydrate, Hydrate, nativehydrate.com/Tom, THOM, and see what it can do for your hydration and wellness.
No one ever sounds the alarm. No one says your freedom's gone. It comes in shadows dressed as law. One more silence, one more flaw. They tell you trust us, they tell you will. That's how they build a police state, brick by brick, fear by fear, until the truth just disappears.
History's knocking, can you hear the sound?
Freedom dies in whispers, not all at once, but inch by inch it hits the ground. Police state,
Who's next in line?
one more freedom, one more crime. Police state,
Open your eyes.
tyranny wears a good disguise. Don't go away,
Don't hesitate.
tomorrow comes too late. Police state, police state.
Hey,
23 minutes past the hour. Trump fires the commission that helps states run elections just in time for the election. This guy is doing and the Republican Party, who supports him and are in on this with him, are doing absolutely everything they can. And I'm sure there's more to come. I mean, I'm waiting for the state of emergency, right? For the Insurrection Act. I'm waiting for the prosecutions. I'm waiting, they're doing everything they can to rig this fall's elections. Because they know what's coming. If the Democrats are in charge, you're going to see Donald Trump's crimes exposed. You're going to see his looting of our government, him and his sons and his daughter and her husband looting our government. You're going to see their billionaire oligarch friends being exposed for bribes, for bribing Trump. I mean, you've got a whole bunch of oligarchs who are scared to death right now. There's going to be a mind-boggling amount of money thrown into this election, because this is literally the end or the renewal of American democracy. This election. And I know I've been doing this program for 25 years. I have been, there have been a couple of elections where I was like, this is the most important election of our lifetime. And each time it was, because it was building up to this. And here we are. The Supreme Court gave him the power to fire people earlier this week, or late last week, as I recall. And now he's doing it. Meanwhile, over on Fox News, Charlie Hurt was filling in for what's his name? Jesse Waters. And he played a clip of Mohammed El-Sayed, the guy, or Abdul El-Sayed, the guy running for the United States Senate in Michigan in the primary. Primary's on August 4th. And Saeed is sitting with a bunch of kids. And one of the kids says, literally unprompted, the kid says, billionaires don't want to spend more because they might be greedy and weren't raised well. So El-Sayed says, I think it's important that if you have something that you share. Imagine you guys had 1 billion cupcakes. Imagine you had 1 billion cupcakes. Do you think you could eat all those of yourself? And the kids say, no. And El-Sayed says, it would give you a real bad stomachache, right? And that was it, right? But he plays this clip on Fox, so-called news, and he says, the ranks of commie radicals are positioning for their takeover. He says, this commie doc without a medical license is running for Senate in Michigan, and he's already hard at work indoctrinating your kids. Yeah, sharing is communism. Sharing cupcakes in kindergarten is communism. Are you friggin' kidding me? I mean, well, Fox News can turn anything into an hour. Remember the tan suit? Incredible. So anyhow, it's Anything Goes Weekend. What's on your mind? I'll pick up your calls on the other side of the break. Stick around.